Removal vans arrive at Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor's mansion, posing major questions for his future relationship with the monarchy. I'm Jack Royston, Newsweek's chief royal correspondent, and this is Newsweek's Royal Report. Hello and welcome back to the show. And now the wheels are in motion to get Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor out of his royal mansion, which is called Royal Lodge. It's in Windsor. It's got 30 rooms or something like that. And he's lived there for decades, since the early 2000s. He paid a peppercorn rent there, which basically means that he had what was called a maintenance contract, where he paid a big lump sum, I think it was 7 or 8 million or something like that, up front. And then he didn't have to pay ongoing rent, and he just was supposed to keep the building looking all nice, and he didn't. So it turned out as they've been getting him out, that there's loads of maintenance work that needs to be done to the building. So he didn't even keep to his end of the bargain, despite having not paid any rent in decades and decades. So he's nearly out. Removal vans have been seen this week arriving at his house. And that suggests an acceleration in the palace's reorganization of the chessboard, basically. So what's happening is Andrew, having been in disgrace, having all his titles stripped away from him, including his prince title and his Duke of York title, is being moved out of this huge mansion and into a much smaller house within the grounds of the Sandringham estate, which is King Charles's private estate in the east of England in Norfolk. People will know it because it's the place where the royal family spend Christmas. So when you see those pictures and videos of the kids on the walk to church on Christmas morning, they are coming from the big house, Sandringham House, to church. And so Andrew won't be in the big house, he'll be in a smaller house called Marsh Farm. And so what I think is quite interesting about the fact that the lorry drivers have suddenly turned up to start moving Andrew's stuff, the word in the press has been reported initially by The Sun, and the word is that it might be as early as mid-February by the time Andrew gets out, basically, by the time he's moved from Windsor to Sandringham, but with a slightly longer limit of, they seem to definitely want him out before Easter. And what's quite interesting to me about that is regular listeners will know that I've been warning that the big threat from Andrew is his capacity to just try to turn up to church on the basis that he's a Christian, and so he has the right to worship in his local church. So in Windsor, the royal family spent Easter at church in Windsor, and then Christmas at church in Sandringham. So Andrew has stayed in Windsor just long enough that he was in Windsor when they were celebrating Christmas at Sandringham, and they're clearly hoping that he'll be in Sandringham when they're celebrating Easter in Windsor. So they're kind of moving it's like that the magic trick with the ping pong ball and the cups. They're like moving the ping pong ball around the cups in just such a way that this year he won't get a chance to kind of try to just force his way into the church service at the same time as the King's arriving or Prince William's arriving and try and sidle up and talk to them, which is what he did at the funeral for the Duchess of Kent. It was one of the things that really ramped up the pressure on the monarchy, was that Andrew got himself photographed at the Duchess of Kent's funeral with both William and Charles. And so that kind of presented him as still being in the fold right before all the big bombshell emails started coming out showing that, he continued his friendship with Epstein past the point that he told us he had done, past the point he told us he cut ties with Epstein. And right before Virginia's posthumous memoir came out. So it's very interesting to see this choreography take place, partly because they're doing a very good job of managing, just kind of manipulating the playing cards in order to manage this threat this year. But obviously, at some point, Andrew's going to be fully ensconced in Sandringham, and Christmas will come back again at the end of 2026. So basically, what this is telling me is put a little note in your calendar, to check, will, Christmas 2026, will Andrew, now a permanent resident in Sandringham, try and attend church with the royal family on Christmas morning? And if he does try to, what steps can the monarchy take to try to kind of protect the senior royals? Well, partly it's timing. If they could try to see, if Andrew really insists on going, they could try and see if they can kind of smuggle him in through the back door. Otherwise, they could try, if they're going to work with him, to see if they can make sure that he arrives at a totally different time to the King and Prince William and the kids. But also, even if they do that, as long as the public see Andrew, if they see him, if the media sees him, if they know he's there, we are all still going to know that there's a pretty good chance that he's going to go up and sidle up to royal family members inside church. Not to mention that when he leaves, they're all going to leave basically together because it's the end of the service. So it becomes much more difficult to stage manage the exit. So they've got a year, I suppose, to think through all this. But what do they say to Andrew? If he says, I'm a Christian and I live in Sandringham, and so I'm planning to go to the church at Sandringham, and you can't stop me, what do they literally do? Do they try to find him a different church to attend? Do they try and get him to spend Christmas somewhere else? I mean, it's going to be quite a tough sell for Andrew. He's not going to want to do that. So as much as I actually have some quiet respect for the expert way that they've managed to make this move take just long enough to stop him from going to church on Christmas Day, but are now racing it through to the point that it sounds like there's even a possibility that Andrew might have to be put into interim accommodation, that they're going to get him out of Royal Lodge so fast that he's going to have to stay temporarily somewhere else while Marsh Farm is made ready for him. They've been decking it out, putting in Sky TV, apparently refurbing the inside to make it ready for him. Yeah, they're getting him out so fast that they're going to have to put him somewhere else first before Marsh Farm's ready for him to move in. So, like, hats off to them for the way they've managed it, but it does seem to hint at the possibility that they are aware of this risk, that Andrew will just try to force his way back into the fold. He might, by the time a year has passed, he might think everything's died down if there haven't been new revelations in the build up to Christmas. And he might, we've seen him try to relaunch himself in similar fashion. It was back, I think, in February, March 2022, that the Queen held a memorial for Prince Philip at Westminster Abbey. So you may remember that when it was Prince Philip's funeral, the Queen had to have a scaled down funeral because of COVID. So then a year passed and she had a bigger event at Westminster Abbey to remember Philip, and Andrew insisted on walking the Queen into church and taking her to her seat, basically leading her to her seat. And so he wound up splashed over all the front pages. It stopped being about Philip and started being about Andrew. And so I think it is, people can expect the same thing to happen if Andrew does this at Christmas. But what literally can Charles do? It's a really interesting question. In the meantime, what does Andrew do? We constantly hear these rumors that Andrew might just jump on a plane and start a new life in the Middle East, and maybe some people are hoping he will, but it has not materialized. That has not happened. We have not seen any evidence that it's going to happen. So ostensibly, Andrew does appear to be preparing to live out his days. Occasionally, he was photographed horse riding, so that's probably what he's going to spend his time doing, occasionally riding, watching television, and he's famously plays a lot of Call of Duty. So playing computer games, watching TV, and horse riding, realistically, is the life that stretches out before him now. But, he made his bed, and actually it's a hell of a lot more comfortable than many people in Andrew's position. So yeah, I don't think he'll get much sympathy from anyone. And that's it for this episode of The Royal Report. Be sure to join me every show as I visit the latest royal headlines, embark on some royal deep dives, and riff on all things royal. Until next time, I'm Jack Royston. Thanks for joining me, and a curtsy to you all.